Evelyn Carter stood on the curb, staring at the house she had called home for over 25 years. The evening air carried a chill that pricked her skin through the thin fabric of her blouse. Just a week ago, her husband Richard's funeral had drawn friends and relatives from far and wide. They had gathered in the small church, whispering condolences, while Evelyn sat numbly in the front pew, her eyes fixed on the closed casket. Now, the mourners had returned to their lives, and Evelyn was left with the hollow silence of a life suddenly uprooted. But as she approached the front door, the first wave of dread hit her. The locks had been changed. She jiggled the handle again, her heart thundering. How could this be? Richard had handled everything: the mortgage, the bills, the deeds. She hadn't even thought to ask where the keys were kept. But that wasn't the worst part. Voices drifted from inside. Laughter, clinking glasses, and muffled conversations. Evelyn pressed her ear against the door, confusion churning in her gut. Those voices were familiar. Richard's parents, Theodore and Celia Carter. She pressed her forehead against the wooden frame, struggling to make sense of it. The house had been dark and empty when she left that morning to visit her sister. How did they get in? A sudden surge of anger propelled her to bang on the door. The laughter ceased. Moments later, the door swung open, and there stood Celia, her silver hair pulled back into a severe bun, her lips set in a tight, insincere smile. "Evelyn," Celia said, eyes darting past her to the street. "What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" Evelyn repeated, her voice trembling. "This is my house. Why did you change the locks?" Celia's expression hardened. "Your house?" She stepped aside, revealing the living room behind her. Boxes were stacked against the walls, some open, revealing Celia's porcelain figurines and Theodore's hunting trophies. "Richard didn't tell you, did he?" "What are you talking about?" Evelyn's eyes darted to the kitchen, where Theodore stood with a glass of whiskey in hand, watching her like a predator sizing up its prey. "This house was always in Richard's name," Celia said, folding her arms, "and now that he's gone, it's ours." Evelyn's knees buckled, and she gripped the doorframe for support. "No, he wouldn't do that." "Oh, but he did," Celia said, voice smooth as silk. "You might want to find somewhere else to stay. You can take your things, what little is left of them." Evelyn's mind reeled as she tried to process Celia's words. Had Richard really kept this from her? Had he really left her with nothing? And if so, why? Evelyn's vision blurred as she staggered back from the door. The ground beneath her felt unsteady, as though it had crumbled along with her sense of security. Celia stepped forward, her smile sharp and triumphant. "You're free to take whatever you left behind," Celia said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "We've already gone through Richard's things. Most of it was garbage anyway." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. Garbage? The photos of their honeymoon in Key West, the letters they wrote to each other when Richard was away on business trips, the antique jewelry box she inherited from her mother. Were those garbage too? "What did you do with my things?" Evelyn asked, her voice shaking. "Oh, don't worry," Theodore said, finally stepping into view, his presence looming. He was a large man with broad shoulders and a face that always seemed to be set in a scowl. "We boxed them up. They're in the garage." Evelyn forced herself to stand tall, her fists clenched. "I want to see the deed to the house. Show me where Richard signed it over to you." Celia's eyes flicked to Theodore, a silent exchange passing between them. Then she shrugged, her shoulders delicate and dismissive. "We'll get to that. Right now, we're still sorting through all the legal stuff. You know how complicated these things can be." But Evelyn wasn't buying it, not anymore. "Richard never told me anything about this. We were married for 25 years. You expect me to believe he left me with nothing?" Celia's expression darkened, her smile vanishing. "People keep secrets, Evelyn," she said, her voice low. "Maybe you didn't know your husband as well as you thought you did." Evelyn felt as though she'd been slapped. She stepped back, swallowing hard. The words echoed in her mind, each syllable a knife twisting deeper. Celia's eyes glinted with a cruel satisfaction, and Evelyn knew in that moment that she was being lied to. But why? Before Evelyn could gather her thoughts, a black SUV pulled into the driveway. Out stepped Marcus, Richard's younger brother. He adjusted the collar of his designer coat, his expression smug and self-satisfied. "Well, well, looks like the gang's all here," he said, his gaze sweeping over Evelyn dismissively. "What are you doing here, Marcus?" Evelyn asked, her voice tight. Marcus leaned against the hood of the car, pulling a set of keys from his pocket and tossing them into the air. "Just picking up a few things. I'm moving in too." The air was sucked out of Evelyn's lungs. "Moving in?" Celia clapped her hands together, as though hosting a grand unveiling. "Of course! Richard would have wanted his family close. It's what he would have wanted, after all." Evelyn's jaw clenched. "This isn't right," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I don't believe you. I want to see the papers." Marcus chuckled, sliding his sunglasses back over his eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, you're not in a position to demand anything." Evelyn turned away, her eyes stinging. The realization sank in deeper. She was utterly alone, and they knew it. They were using her grief, her shock, her disorientation against her. But beneath the ache, a spark of defiance flickered. If Richard had hidden something from her, then she would find it. And if the Carters thought they could bury her in lies and false paperwork, they had another thing coming. Evelyn sat at Lila's kitchen table, her hands wrapped tightly around a mug of cold coffee. The encounter with Marcus replayed in her mind like a broken record. His smug expression, the way he leaned in close, his words laced with veiled threats, it all made her skin crawl. "I need to talk to Robert Landon," Evelyn said, her voice flat. Lila nodded, eyes fixed on her. "Do you think he's in on it?" Evelyn shook her head. "I don't know, but Richard trusted him. Maybe he can give me some answers." Lila pulled out her phone, typing quickly. "Got his office address. It's only a few blocks away." Evelyn stood, grabbing her coat. "I'm going now." The walk felt longer than it should have. Every sound, every passing car made Evelyn flinch, half expecting Marcus to appear again. When she finally reached the law office, she hesitated. The building loomed above her, its glass doors reflecting her tired, hollow-eyed expression. Inside, Robert Landon's receptionist glanced up, her smile polite but distant. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but it's urgent," Evelyn said, her voice strained. "I need to speak with Mr. Landon about my husband, Richard Carter." The receptionist's expression softened. "Oh, Mrs. Carter, I'm so sorry for your loss." Before Evelyn could respond, Robert stepped into the waiting area, his brow furrowed. "Evelyn, come in." Inside his office, Evelyn sat on the edge of the chair, her fingers twisting in her lap. Robert leaned forward, his eyes searching hers. "What's going on?" "They changed the locks," Evelyn said, her voice shaking. "Celia and Theodore. They said Richard left the house to them." Robert's eyes narrowed. "That doesn't make sense." "They said it was in Richard's name, that I have no right to it." Robert sat back, rubbing his jaw. "Richard never mentioned anything like that to me. In fact, he was planning to update his will." "Update it?" Evelyn's heart pounded. "Why?" Robert hesitated. "I can't say. But Evelyn, something wasn't right with Richard lately. He was nervous, paranoid even. He said he was being watched." Evelyn's stomach churned. "By who?" Robert shook his head. "I don't know. But whatever it was, he was afraid." Evelyn left Robert's office with her mind swirling. The crisp wind bit at her cheeks as she pulled her coat tighter, feeling more exposed than ever. Richard was paranoid? Watched? None of it made sense. If he had been afraid, why hadn't he told her? She reached Lila's apartment and found her friend waiting anxiously by the window. "Well?" Lila asked, practically leaping from the chair. Evelyn slumped onto the couch, pressing her palms to her forehead. Robert said Richard was planning to update his will, but he never did. "Update it?" Lila frowned. "Why would he do that?" Evelyn shook her head. "Robert wouldn't say, but he did mention something else. Richard was paranoid, said he was being watched." Lila's face fell. "Watched? By who?" "That's the thing," Evelyn said, her jaw tightening. "I don't know, and Robert doesn't either." Lila stood, pacing. "If he was afraid, maybe he left something behind, some kind of clue." Evelyn's eyes snapped up. But the Carters threw out all my things. Maybe not everything, Lila said, eyes sharp. What about his office? Did they clear that out too? Evelyn's heart thudded. Richard's home office. The place he spent hours in, locked away with his laptop and piles of paperwork. I need to get in there, she said, standing abruptly. But the locks. Evelyn's jaw set. Then I'll break in. That night, Evelyn and Lila parked a block away from the house, watching the lights inside flicker as Celia and Theodore moved about. The blinds were drawn, and the house loomed like a fortress. Evelyn's hands shook as she crept around to the side gate, which creaked as she pushed it open. Lila followed close behind, glancing nervously over her shoulder. If we get caught— We won't, Evelyn whispered. They're in the living room. The office is at the back. The window to Richard's office was slightly ajar. Evelyn pushed it up and slipped inside, landing in the darkness. The familiar scent of Richard's cologne hung in the air, and her heart twisted painfully. Lila followed, closing the window behind her. Evelyn flicked on her phone's flashlight, sweeping the beam over the room. The desk was still cluttered, papers, bills, receipts. But one drawer was slightly open, as if someone had rifled through it hastily. Evelyn knelt down, her hands trembling as she pulled it open. Inside, beneath a stack of old tax returns, was a small, leather-bound notebook. "What's that?" Lila whispered. Evelyn opened it, her breath catching. Inside were pages of Richard's handwriting, frantic, desperate. The first entry read, "They're watching me. I know they are. Marcus keeps asking about the will. Celia's been in my office when I'm not home. I can't trust them. I need to do something before it's too late." Evelyn's eyes blurred as she flipped through page after page of Richard's paranoid ramblings. Names, dates, cryptic notes, all leading to one final chilling entry. If something happens to me, it wasn't an accident. Evelyn's hands shook violently. Lila, what if Richard didn't just die? What if he was murdered? Evelyn sat on Lila's couch, the leather-bound notebook open on her lap. Lila paced the small living room, chewing her thumbnail, her eyes darting toward the window every few seconds. It's insane, Lila said, her voice tight. Richard thought his own brother was going to kill him? Evelyn flipped through the pages, each one more chilling than the last. Richard's handwriting grew sloppier, his words more desperate. Marcus keeps asking me about the life insurance. Why? What does he know? I can't trust him. Life insurance. Evelyn's eyes snapped up. Do you remember if Richard ever mentioned a life insurance policy? Lila shook her head. Not to me, but if Marcus was asking about it, it must be significant. Evelyn's mind whirred. If Richard had a life insurance policy, and if Marcus was probing him about it, then there was a chance that the payout was the real motive. But why would Marcus need that money? And did Celia know? I need to find out if there was a policy, Evelyn said, standing abruptly. Robert might know. Before Lila could respond, Evelyn's phone vibrated on the coffee table. Unknown number. Evelyn's heart hammered as she answered. Hello? There was a pause. Then a slow, deliberate breath. I know what you're doing, a male voice said. Evelyn's throat tightened. Who is this? You think you're so smart, don't you? Snooping around, asking questions. You should really mind your own business, Evelyn. Click. Evelyn dropped the phone, her whole body trembling. Lila rushed over, grabbing her shoulders. Who was that? I don't know, Evelyn whispered, staring at the phone as though it might spring to life again. But they know. They know I'm looking. Lila's eyes darkened. You need to go to the police. With what? A notebook full of paranoid ramblings? Evelyn shook her head. They'll say I'm the one losing it. Lila bit her lip. Then we need real evidence. The life insurance policy. If Marcus was pressuring Richard about it, there has to be a record. Evelyn nodded, her mind already racing. If Richard was afraid of Marcus, maybe he left a copy somewhere safe. But where? Lila's eyes brightened. What about the storage unit? Evelyn frowned. What storage unit? Lila leaned forward, lowering her voice. A few months ago, Richard asked me if he could use my name to rent a storage unit. Said it was for work documents, stuff he didn't want cluttering up the house. Evelyn's pulse quickened. Do you still have the key? Lila nodded. And the address. Evelyn grabbed her coat, adrenaline coursing through her veins. If Richard had been hiding something, it had to be in that storage unit. And if Marcus was watching her, he couldn't know she was onto him. Not yet. The storage facility loomed in front of them, its gray exterior stark against the darkening sky. Evelyn's pulse raced as Lila fumbled with the key, her hands shaking. Are you sure about this? Lila whispered, her eyes darting nervously around the empty lot. Evelyn nodded, her jaw set. If Richard was hiding something, it's in there. The lock clicked open, and Lila pushed up the metal door. A cold draft swept out, carrying the stale scent of cardboard and dust. Evelyn stepped inside, eyes adjusting to the dim light. Boxes were stacked haphazardly, some labeled, others not. In the corner sat a metal filing cabinet, its top drawer slightly ajar. Lila closed the door behind them, her breath fogging the air. Where do we start? Evelyn moved to the cabinet, pulling open the drawer. Inside were folders, each meticulously labeled with dates. She flipped through them. Bank statements, insurance, legal. Her fingers stopped on a folder labeled life insurance. Her heart hammered as she pulled it out and opened it. Inside was a single document, a life insurance policy worth $500,000. The beneficiary, Marcus Carter. Evelyn's knees buckled. It's him, Marcus. He was going to get $500,000 if Richard died. Lila's eyes widened. But why would Richard name Marcus? Why not you? Evelyn shook her head, her pulse pounding in her ears. Unless he didn't. Unless Marcus somehow changed it. Lila moved to another box, lifting the lid. Inside were more files, loose papers, and a black USB drive. Evelyn, she whispered, holding it up. Evelyn snatched it, her hands trembling. We need to see what's on this. A loud bang echoed outside. Both women jumped, eyes locked on the door. What was that? Lila whispered. Evelyn's heart raced. Footsteps crunched against the gravel outside, growing louder. Someone was approaching. Evelyn shoved the life insurance folder into her bag and grabbed Lila's arm. We have to go, now. They slipped through a side exit, running down the narrow alley between the storage units. Behind them, the sound of the storage unit door being thrown open echoed through the lot. Evelyn dared a glance back. The tall, dark figure of Marcus stood framed in the doorway, his eyes scanning the area like a predator searching for prey. Evelyn gripped Lila's hand tighter, pulling her forward. Keep running. Back at Lila's apartment, Evelyn's hands shook as she inserted the USB drive into Lila's laptop. The screen flickered, and a single folder appeared, labeled Final Words. Lila leaned over her shoulder, eyes wide. What do you think is on it? Evelyn swallowed hard. Only one way to find out. She clicked on the folder, revealing a series of audio files, each labeled with a date. The most recent file was dated just 3 days before Richard's death. Evelyn's heart pounded as she clicked on it. Richard's voice crackled through the speakers, tense and shaky. If you're listening to this, something has happened to me. They're closing in. Marcus keeps asking me about the will, about the insurance. He wants me to sign over the house, but I won't do it. I can't. Evelyn doesn't know. She thinks everything is fine, but it's not. Evelyn's breath caught. Richard's voice sounded small, defeated. Marcus said he'd make me pay if I didn't do what he wanted. And Celia, she's in on it too. They're both trying to push me out, to get me to sign over everything. I have to protect Evelyn. I have to make sure she's safe. The recording ended abruptly. Lila's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, he knew they were after him. Evelyn felt as though the ground was slipping away beneath her. Marcus and Celia, they were working together. Lila closed the laptop, her expression grave. If they find out we have this. Evelyn nodded, her jaw clenched. They'll come after me next. A loud banging echoed through the apartment. Both women jumped, eyes darting to the door. Evelyn! A man's voice bellowed from the other side. Open up! I know you're in there! Marcus. Evelyn's blood ran cold. Lila grabbed her arm, dragging her toward the back door. Come on, we have to go! They slipped out the back, racing down the fire escape as Marcus's pounding grew louder. Evelyn's mind raced. How did he know where she was? Was he tracking her phone? Watching the apartment? They ran down the alley and into the main street, gasping for air. Evelyn's eyes darted around, searching for a safe place. "We need to go to the police," she said, her voice breaking. "We have evidence now." Lila nodded, but her eyes were filled with fear. "Do you really think they'll believe us? Marcus is rich, connected. He'll find a way to make us look crazy." Evelyn's stomach churned. Lila was right. Marcus had already proven he was willing to intimidate, even threaten. And if Celia was involved too, then Evelyn was even more alone than she thought. But Richard's words echoed in her mind. "I have to protect Evelyn. I have to make sure she's safe." She wouldn't let him down. Not now. Evelyn and Lila huddled in the cramped motel room, the flickering fluorescent light casting ominous shadows. Evelyn's fingers trembled as she plugged the USB drive back into the laptop. "There were more files," she said, voice tight. "We only listened to one." Lila locked the door, drawing the curtain tight. "Are you sure this is safe? What if Marcus finds us?" Evelyn swallowed hard, glancing at her phone. The battery was nearly dead. She powered it off. "He's tracking me somehow. I can't risk it." She clicked on the next file, labeled Insurance Last Warning. Richard's voice echoed through the tinny speakers, lower this time, more exhausted. "Marcus came by again today. He said if I don't sign the insurance papers over to him, he'll make sure Evelyn regrets it. Celia won't look me in the eye anymore. I think she knows what Marcus is planning, but she won't stop him. God, what have I done?" Evelyn pressed her hand to her mouth, her eyes stinging with tears. Richard had known he was in danger. He'd tried to protect her, but he never told her. Lila's jaw clenched. "He threatened you. Marcus threatened you to get to Richard." Evelyn nodded, her heart pounding. But why? Why did Richard put Marcus on the insurance policy in the first place? Lila leaned forward, eyes dark. Maybe he didn't. Maybe Marcus forged it. Evelyn's mind raced. Richard's paranoia, his fear, it all made sense now. Marcus had been applying pressure, using Evelyn as leverage. But how far would he go? Before Evelyn could answer, the motel phone rang, shrill and loud. Both women jumped. Lila grabbed the receiver, her face pale. "Hello?" Silence. Then a soft, chilling chuckle. "You think you're safe, Evelyn? You're not." Lila's eyes widened. "Who is this?" The line went dead. Evelyn's blood ran cold. "Marcus, he knows we're here." Lila slammed the receiver down, her breaths coming fast. "We have to get out of here, now." Evelyn pulled the USB drive from the laptop, shoving it into her pocket. "We need to go to the police. This is enough. The insurance policy, the recordings, it's enough." Lila hesitated, eyes darting to the door. "And what if Marcus has already paid them off? He's got money, connections. What if they don't believe you?" Evelyn's chest tightened. Lila was right. They were running out of time, and Marcus was closing in. But there was one last recording on the drive. One labeled, "If I don't make it." Evelyn's breath caught. Richard left a final message. Lila's eyes locked onto hers. "Then we have to hear it. Before Marcus finds us." Evelyn and Lila crouched behind a dumpster, breaths coming in sharp gasps. Marcus's SUV idled in the motel lot, headlights slicing through the darkness. "We need to move," Evelyn whispered, eyes darting to the alley's exit. Lila nodded, clutching her arm. "Where?" "Robert," Evelyn said. "Richard trusted him." They slipped through the alley, staying close to the shadows. The sound of Marcus's boots hitting the pavement echoed, his curses growing louder. Evelyn gripped Lila's hand tighter, urging her to keep moving. At the street, Lila pulled out her phone, quickly hailing a ride. Moments later, they climbed into a beat-up sedan. Evelyn tossed her phone out the window, the screen shattering as it hit the ground. Lila handed her a spare. "If Marcus is tracking you, that should stop him." Evelyn nodded, but dread still gnawed at her. If Robert was their last hope, they had to reach him before Marcus did. When they arrived, Robert opened the door, eyes wide. "Evelyn, what happened?" Evelyn stepped inside, clutching the USB drive. "Richard left recordings. We have proof that Marcus is behind everything." Robert's gaze flicked to the street, jaw tense. Then you'd better come in, quickly. Robert paced his office, his face pale as the last recording played. Richard's desperate voice echoed through the room. If something happens to me, it wasn't an accident. Marcus did this. Celia helped. Robert sank into his chair, running a hand through his hair. I knew Marcus was dangerous, but this is worse than I thought. Evelyn leaned forward, her jaw clenched. He's been following me. He found us at the motel. He knows we have this. Robert straightened. You need to get to a safe place. I can take this to a trusted investigator, someone outside of Marcus's reach. Lila shook her head, her eyes wide. What if Marcus finds out? He's already threatened Evelyn. He won't stop until she's dead. Robert's eyes darkened. Then we need to act fast. Evelyn dug into her bag and pulled out the life insurance policy. Richard said he never changed the beneficiary. Marcus must have forged it. Robert scanned the document, eyes narrowing. Look here. The signature is wrong. Richard always signed with a middle initial. This one doesn't have it. Evelyn's heart pounded. That's enough to prove forgery, right? Robert nodded. And it's enough to open an investigation. A car engine roared outside. Headlights flooded the office. Evelyn's blood ran cold. Lila moved to the window, her face paling. It's Marcus. Robert stood quickly, locking the door. There's a back exit. Take the USB and the insurance policy. Go now. But what about you? Evelyn asked, her heart hammering. Robert met her eyes, his jaw set. I'll stall him. Just go. Evelyn grabbed Lila's hand, and they sprinted down the hallway, the sound of Marcus's pounding fists echoing behind them. Evelyn! Marcus's voice boomed, venomous and close. You can't run forever! Evelyn and Lila burst through the back door and into the alley, cold air stinging their faces. They ran blindly, feet pounding the pavement, the USB drive clutched tightly in Evelyn's fist. Lila gasped, eyes wild. Where do we go now? Evelyn swallowed, her mind racing. To the police. We have to risk it. It's our only chance. But as they rounded the corner, another car screeched to a stop in front of them. Celia stepped out, her face a mask of cold fury. You should have stayed quiet, Evelyn, Celia said, her eyes glinting in the dark. Evelyn stepped back, her blood running cold. Celia moved closer, her smile sharp and predatory. But now it's too late.